Hello, how's it going? So I'm going to continue the Windows stuff, and the goal with this Windows stuff is to start looking at DirectX 12. But just as a warm-up, I'm going to have a look at DirectX 2D. As with the previous video, this is more or less following Windows' official tutorial on how to do this stuff, but I'll put a spin on it. Oh, also, side note, I am aware that this is not actually Cortana. Hot take, Halo Infinite is good. I've been playing it. Yeah, I'm not going to make any friends with this video, so let's just get into it. What I'm going to do is, first up, I'm going to include the Direct2D header. Now here I've got this struct that I've been passing around, and that's cool because a struct is very simple, but I'm going to go ahead and create a class. But I'm not going to do anything fancy with inheriting programs or anything. I'm still just going to be working with basic pointers because they're good. So here's my class. We'll have some public and private resources and things. On the private end of things, I'm going to have a render target, which will basically be the resource onto which we're going to draw. Now, Direct2D, the DirectX, the Direct collection, has a funny way of specifying their names. The way we do this is with ID2D, I2D1 handle render target. So this I stands for interface. In Windows programming, they use something called the component object model, and I don't 100% understand why they only mention components and not objects and models, and they say that objects are components. I think that's super strange, but the basic idea is this allows you to have interfaces to objects and work with those interfaces. And yes, I know that interfaces already exist, but I guess, Windows was made back in the 1990s, and long story short, well, the shortest story possible is this is how it is, and the slightly longer short story is this allows us to do things like copy tables from Excel spreadsheets, put them in Word documents, and edit them both at the same place using an interface. It doesn't matter even what the underlying programming language is or application binary interface, but that is a lot of talk. So I'm then going to have a solid color, a brush. We have this solid color brush. And like I said, I'm following along from the standard Microsoft tutorial, but we're going to be drawing an ellipse on the screen. So our main window is going to have a handle to a window, which it manages. It's also going to have a factory. So direct stuff, Direct2D, Direct3D, all of that deals with factories as constructors. So we have this factory, and this is used for any object allocations. So in terms of the public methods of this main window, we're going to have a bunch. We're going to have basically, we're going to create resources, destroy resources, calculate layout, paint the screen, and resize the screen. So I'll go ahead and write out the prototypes for that. So I'll leave that for now. We'll get back to it. Let's go back and re-examine our Windows main thing. So we've got the window class that we're registering. This all looks fine. I'm gonna go ahead and construct a main window. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll just call it my state. That's fine. Just like that. This accepts a void pointer, so all good. We'll just stick that in there. And then there's a bit of a funky thing which is happening here, which is right up in here we have created the window class, instantiated that, and we've given it a pointer to our window. But then if I look up at our window also needs to get a handle to the window that we just created. So just down here, before I do all this stuff, I'll say, I'll set the window to this handle which I just got. Otherwise, this stuff is not going to change. It's the same. So I'll just sort of get this out of the way, and then I'll have a look at my main loop. So there's some obvious things that we need to change. The big one is we're now dealing with a main window pointer. So I'll go ahead and fix that up. And also, while I'm at it, I'll fix it up everywhere else. We see this if-else branch. The else branch, the else branch is basically grabbing a pointer to the window, so we'll have that no matter what. But then here in the if branch, this is triggered at the point of window initialization. And what I want to do, or this is where I want to run all my code, which is going to be run at window initialization. The big one is to create the factory for the window, so that the window can then go ahead and create all the resources that it needs. So the way that we create a factory is with this function D2D1 create factory, and this takes in the factory type that we're creating, and then this is a little funky, it takes a pointer to a pointer, which will then be populated with the actual factory and returns a result. So for the factory type, we'll have D2D. We have these options here. I'm going to go single-threaded rather than multi-threaded. And then we need the pointer to the pointer. So I'll take the factory and just get a reference, get the address of that. Okay, cool. But also this is going to return a result. So we want to have some sort of thing to fail. So turns out there's a neat macro defined for result handles, which just basically checks whether we got success or not. In the case where we fail, we just return -1. All good. We are done. So this is at the point of creation, creating the factory object for our window. And then with that out of the way, down here we've got our actual messages. So this is going to get a little bit simpler. In the case of a destroy message, as well as posting a quit message, I'm going to destroy all the resources that I've got. And then what I want to do is release, sorry, where am I? So get my factory and want to release that. So like in some other programming environments that I've talked about, like Cocoa or Cocoa, these objects are manually managed. The memory is managed, and that's done with reference counting. So when we get the factory in the first place, that gives it a reference count of 1. Releasing an object will decrease or decrement its reference count, and when that reference count goes down to 0, the object is, that memory is freed. And so we got that there. Cool. So for the paint event, this is going to get significantly simpler. I'll go ahead and get rid of all this. It's as simple as taking the state object and telling it to paint. That's it. Cool. I'm also going to handle a resize operation, and that's done with the Windows message size. In this case, I'll take the window and tell it, hey, you've been sized, so you should go ahead and resize yourself. And then we'll also handle, anything else which comes along, the default message. Okay, cool. So we'll do let's get that out of the way. Of course, this isn't going to work yet because we need to actually define what these functions are going to do. So I'll just go in here and we're going to handle the simplest one first, which is, I guess, the resize. So we're going to have some sort of rectangle, and this will be populated with the new size of the window, and that'll be done with get client rect. And this takes in the window that we're querying and the pointer to the rectangle, which will be populated. Cool. So we've now got the size, and I'm going to use that size to initialize a Direct2D unsigned size. That's a D2D. There we go. And for these properties, width and height, I'm going to pass in the right and bottom. So then what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to take the render target and resize it. Just pass in the size we want to work with. And then there's one more function that I've missed, and that is the this one here, calculate layout. And this will essentially resize resize the ellipse basically on the window. So after we resize our render target, we'll then go ahead and get the new ellipse size. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to invalidate the entire window. And this will have the effect of marking the entire window for redraw. When a redraw event occurs, there's what's called an invalidated region, which is the area which needs to be redrawn. By invalidating the whole thing, this will, redraw the whole window. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an ellipse right in the center of the window. We have our top left at 0, 0, our bottom right at width height. And so if we take half width height, that'll be right in the middle. And I'm going to set the radius of the ellipse, or the radius of the circle, to be whichever is the smaller of those two dimensions. And then I'll go ahead and construct that ellipse. So we'll have the center, which will be a point. So, and then the radius, it'll be the same for both. So cool. Okay, so we've got that calculated layout. Let me go in. Which one do I want to do next? Let me destroy resources. That looks a little simple. Okay, looks good. Ooh, okay, let's go ahead and create resources. So this resource creation is going to involve a number of initializers, and what I'm going to do is at every step I want to check whether the initializer succeeded or failed. So I'm going to have a result, and we can specify this as success OK. Go ahead and create things. So again, we'll get the size of the window. And now we'll go ahead and create the render target. So create an abstraction of the window that Direct2D can draw to. So here we're going to need to pass in some properties. Thankfully there are some defaults, render target properties, that'll do it. Then we need to pass in some handle window render target properties. Okay, so I believe what this will do is this will actually query a specific window and get the properties that we need. So we just need to put in the window and then the size, right? And then we've just got this pointer to a pointer. and then we can check, you know, if that result was good or not. And if it isn't, we can immediately stop. Okay, so we've got our render target. I'm then going to go ahead and create our brush. And this brush is created by the render target. So we'll go render target, create, no. Create solid color brush. We're just going to pass in the color. And then similarly, if we failed, we can just say, hey, we failed, give back that result. Otherwise, we can proceed, sort of construct our ellipse, and then, yeah, return the result. Cool. Okay, so that is probably fine. I'll close that down. One last thing, and that is to paint the screen. So something a little funky here. What I'm going to be doing is recreating the resources every time. So I'll say create the resources, and then we'll have a failure check. And just, you know, stop. But there's a problem here, right? So this recreating the resources makes it more robust every time. However, it will create a memory leak, right? Because it's possible. So this makes it such that we can like call the function anytime, and whether the resources have been made or not, it'll probably work properly. But I'm just going to put in an extra check in create resources, which is going to check to see if the resources have already been created and do an early exit. And a good sort of barometer to see if that is the case is if our render target is not a null pointer. So let's assume that we've got valid resources that we're going to work with. Now I'll start to do the same sort of stuff as before. So we'll have the paint event. We'll begin drawing. And what this will do is it will query the window and say, okay, what's the invalid region which needs to be repainted, as well as, I believe, a few other things, but basically populate the paint event so that we're good to go. But now we're going to begin. We'll go end paint. And then in between, we're going to do our Direct2D stuff. So we'll go in and we'll get the render target and we'll begin drawing to it. Clear the render target. And then we'll draw that ellipse, and that's done with the fill ellipse method. Put in our ellipse object and our brush will hold that color. So what we're going to do then is going to end the draw operation, and that end draw will actually give a result handle, so we can query whether our resources need to be recreated. Okay, so this is basically done, but there's a few edge cases that we need to look for. But it's probably a good idea just to like run this anyway and see what happens. I mean, I have a good idea what the edge cases are, but let's give it a go. Okay, fail. Haha, nice. Okay, unresolved external. This usually happens when there's a library that I've linked to, but I'm not really telling the linker about that library. Oh, what's going on here? Okay, so I'll go to linker input. This is something here is really messing up the text size. So basically I've gone here to, linker input, and I'm going to need to specify that I'm using the Direct2D 1 library, and I do that with its library name direct2d1.lib. Hopefully we can defer those errors a bit off to the future. Okay, right. So we've run it, we've come up with the window, and it's just completely failed. It says exception thrown, read access violation. I wonder what info we have down here. Okay, so this is one of the few cases where we can directly see all the info we need. So it says here we've got all this stuff, this is all fine. Now, a read access violation usually happens when we try to access a null pointer, and we can see this down here. We've got this handle to a render target, which is null. And this simply happens because when we go ahead and create everything, an initial resize event occurs because the window has gone from not existing to existing, but all of this stuff was based around resizing a render target, which may not exist at this point. So that render target may be a null pointer, and it's pretty easy to check for that. We can go if not render target early exit. We're going to do nothing in this case. Let's go ahead and see what this does. Okay, so we've now got our thing, and remember we need to also handle, I wonder if we can move this around. Yeah, we can. We also need to handle resizes. So let me go ahead and try to resize this. Okay. It seems to handle that okay. Try to break it. It's okay, but I'm just going to talk about a few extra things. By the way, is this hurting your eyes? I don't know. Green and purple. Okay, so this is all fine, but this function here can potentially destroy the resources, but then the check to see whether we should create the resources is whether they are the null pointer, but releasing a pointer will not inherently set it back to null. So there are two approaches which really help here. One, which I'll look at in a future video, is something called COM pointers, which is like Microsoft's version of smart pointers. But another approach, which is, again, this is down from on high in the official tutorial, is something like a generic function for releasing pointers and resetting them. So this will be a generic function named safe release, and this will take a pointer to a pointer, query whether it is valid, and if it's valid, release it. So what we can do is we can say if this thing is a null pointer, so we can take the pointer to a pointer, dereference it, and check whether that's null. If that's the case, we can return. But otherwise, what we can do is we can take that pointer which is being pointed to, release that object, and then set the underlying pointer back to null, so that any if statements which rely on that will then be operating properly. So I'll just get that safe release and search. Okay. And that's probably fine. This is the only releasing which can be happening dynamically, where we're releasing and possibly recreating resources. So I'm a little lazy, and to be honest, the initial program was already working. What's going on here? Easy fix. What was I saying about the thing working? Okay, here we go. Yeah, perfect. Okay, just the same as before, and we can like resize it. I said I got this computer recently, and like it doesn't. Sometimes I click and it just doesn't register that that was a click. You have to click twice or something. But yeah, I mean, this is This is probably about as deep as you want to go in Direct2D, to be honest. We've got it. The real benefit is not to learn Direct2D, that's not the goal. We'll be to learning DirectX 12, but I just wanted to go through like a slightly more complicated program. So there we go. That'll be it for now. Hope you had fun, and I will see you again soon. Bye. Hi, so I just wanted to take a second to say thank you to all of my channel supporters. If you would like to support the channel, it's $2.50 a month. That's all I ask, but it's not expected. If you are not able or willing to support the channel financially, the best thing you can do is the usual: like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you'd like to see. Let me know what you're enjoying, because I am trying to make the best educational content that I can under the constraints. So with that out of the way, really big thank you to Antonin Karet, Dankil Foles, Declan, Endelon Studios, Isaiah Meyer, Mathieu Derick, Moim, and Shreya. Thank you so much, my dudes. I really do appreciate it. It's fuel for the fire. Keep me going, keep me motivated. But yeah, have a great one, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.